Hi, everybody. Happy Friday to you all. And thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys are doing great. And tonight, I have a very interesting brother with us tonight. And he's going to share his incredible story with us. So, coucou tout le monde. Bienvenue sur ma chaîne. J'espère que vous allez tous bien. Et très bon début de semaine à tous. Ce soir, j'ai un frère avec moi. Il s'appelle Nana et il est en fait le directeur de la société dont il va nous parler ce soir et il va partager aussi ses expériences de vie avec nous en tant qu'Africains aux États-Unis et aussi nous parler de la raison pour laquelle il a commencé par s'investir en Afrique. Donc, merci une fois encore d'être ici. So, guys, Nana is here with us tonight. Nana, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, audience. Miss Kai, right? Am I correct? I don't
Yes,
want to. I don't want to butcher.
you get it right. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity to exchange value with you. Hello, audience. My name is AHMED NANA KWAKU-DUA AGYEMAN. I was born in Ghana. Moved to the States when I was a young boy. And I've been out here since about 27 years in Seattle specifically. And right now, I'm the CEO of Agyeman Consulting Services. It's a strategy engineering, industry research, and supply chain integration and brand development company for Diaspora organizations or institutions who are looking for opportunities in Africa. I'm also a co-founder of a nonprofit organization. We like to call it a sustainable organization. It's called ADIA, African Descent Youth Affairs. If you're looking for it, it's ADYA effect EFFECT.org. We are specifically advancing minority kids, African descent kids in math, science, and cognitive learning and things as such here in Seattle, and we hope to expand it and beyond. So yeah, that's what I do. I have a beautiful daughter and a fiance, and yeah, I'm very, very happy, man. Hello, Miss Kai. I can't hear you, by the way. Just let you know.
I hear you clearly, though. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Oh, is it?
Right.
Okay, Nana. Yeah, what I said, I know you went to the States at a very young age and
Yes,
you were doing so well at school. And at
right.
one point, life happened, you find yourself, you
Mm,
became homeless.
right.
So, what actually happened to you?
Mm. So I left my mom in Ghana when I was about 10 or 11, moving with my dad. My dad was in Seattle going through his master's program. He had a new wife, and it was my older brother and I, and he wanted us to come and live with him. So we moved down here with him. But as we moved here, let me see, about 14 or 15, my father made another transition. Um, and my older brother and I were left to live with a few family members out here in Seattle, which was fine. I mean, it was a great transition for him, but I think at that time, I'm not sure if we were ready to live with other family members outside of our fathers, you know, I don't know, space or whatnot. But hey, man, that's what happens, and it's just it went on from there. Just I don't want to go too much in detail, but a lot of families of African descent have obviously family dysfunctionalities or whatnot, and man, I was no different. So at 15, I dropped out of school and I just ended up on my own. Me and my friends, as I've said previously, on other podcasts, my experience as a black man in America is in the eyes of the African Americans. So I didn't go to school with anybody from Ghana or anybody from West Africa. Matter of fact, I think the closest Africans I met over there were the East Africans. So African Americans were people who pretty much groomed me in Seattle to understand what I don't know, being a black man in America really is. I didn't have I didn't have no Caucasian friends or anything like that. As much as Seattle is, I would say, predominantly Caucasians or white folks. We used to have a significant percentage of our neighborhoods of African descent, African Americans, and other African folks or African diaspora folks. Um, so yeah, man, I grew up with them. We had ran the streets. A lot of my friends came from single homes like I did, really. And we ran the streets, man. We were on our own, very, very smart young folks. And, man, we did what we had to do all the way till I was about 24 when, that's when life had hit a dead end for me. A lot of things went south. I lost a lot of my friends. Yeah, so at this point, man, I just had to find a way out, man. I was facing some time in jail. By the grace of God, I was able to overcome that, right? So, at that point, man, when you're young and you're making money, at that time, you're arrogant, because you feel like money brings you everything, right? So, when you hit a dead end and you start realizing, like, man, there's certain limitations to a certain decisions you make in life, I don't know, I mean, you start to reflect if you're really looking for a solution. So I was reflecting a lot. I started reconnecting back with my family in Ghana, and after I went through my situation here in terms of the whole jail situation, I was able to overcome it. But I overcame it with a lot of stuff. A lot of depression, a whole lot of losses. I ended up with nothing. All the money I made, man, it went to my lawyers, and I didn't have nothing. So I had to start from scratch, and I had to find a way to heal. So my father reached out to me, and yeah, man, I went to Africa in '07, and I was a lot older. I was able to reconnect with my families over there, and it changed my life. I came back here, man. I got my GED, and everything I learned on the streets in terms of how to survive, how to make money. We were making a lot of money, average of like maybe 4 grand a week sometimes, at the minimum sometimes. So at 19, 20, 21, 22, you flashy this and that. After you after you get to the bottom of that situation, and you end up in the motherland, I don't know, you start looking at life from a whole different perspective, Man, but I've always been an entrepreneurship minded person. If even when I was young, everything we did was innovative, So um, I was able to, understand what kind of opportunities I was looking for in
Mm,
Africa as I went. I was looking at it and I was like, wow, man, this place is blessed. Man, I left as a young kid, but this place is blessed. I was a lot more mature then, you know what I'm saying? So I can see things, and my uncles were able to expose a lot of things to me. And yeah, made it clear. I think you have a purpose to go back to the States and finish up
mhm,
your schooling and everything. And yeah, I even find a way to help the continent. And I was like, man, I think that's what God's want me to do. So
mm,
I came back to the States, and I had to ask myself, in terms of me being an African or a Ghanaian or Ashanti
mm,
uh, person who was raised in America,
mm,
what does my value mean for the diaspora and the continent people, in terms of my generation and the ones who are coming after? You know,
mm,
you know, I, it was just a lot of reflection, and I think my major reflection was understanding what kind of system I wanted to play on. I was like, okay, I live in America. I mean, the system took everything away from me. Um,
mm,
I mean, how do I want to operate as I move forward? So eventually, man, I figured it out.
That's amazing. The fact that you have to actually, I don't know. First, no, first of all, let me ask you, what actually motivated you to, travel, like to go back to Africa?
Shit. I'm sorry.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
I'm just,
Mm.
wow. I just went back to, I think it was two major things. It was one, my mother.
Right.
Okay. It was my mother. You know, I had been away from her for so long. You know, I didn't, I didn't know what that meant for my healing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so, I wanted to see her. And then, and number two, I just needed a break, man. I needed to get the hell out of this, man.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
I mean, if you talk about depression, I mean, I remember as I was here going through my process, you
Mm.
know, man, there were days I couldn't sleep for like 18 hours. You know what I'm saying, man?
Wow.
And I'm just up, right? So, um, I don't know. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I'm finding ways out through marijuana and things like that, man. Smoking a whole lot at that time. I mean, it was just things that I had to find a solution for. And me going to the motherland was just an opportunity for my brain to
Right.
reconfigure it itself, because everything is visual, right? So when you're seeing the same things all the time in the same
Mm.
environment, which oppress you or
Mm.
depresses you, I mean, sometimes cognitively you actually need a change. You know what I mean? So
Right.
um, I was able to, I was able to find that mental change over there in Africa. It was very, very different from where I grew up.
Mm.
And I was able to reconnect with my family, which was very, very important to me.
Right. So when you came back to the States, what actually, the fact that you went there, you spent time with family, you had time to reflect and all that, what actually, when you went back to the States, how was your lifestyle like after that?
Mm, yeah, I came back, and the first thing I did was kind of like me change my environment. You know, um, I grew up in the hood. So I came back, man. I had such a recovery over there in Africa, man. I was exposed to, I was just so rewarded with, I don't know, so much love and hospitality, and I just I just couldn't imagine, man, coming back and like man going backwards. Um, I just at that point I made a commitment to really, really, really make develop a relationship, man, with my spirit, and just understand what the purpose really is. So I changed my environment. I mean, I had lost so many of my friends at that point that honestly, man, I just wanted to be alone. So really, man, with that mindset, man, I just went into focus mode. Um, I got my GED, and I felt like, okay, what am I gonna do in college after my GED? And I've always been good in business. Like I said, on the streets, everything we did was innovative. So I was like, well, the only administration or the only, I don't know, degree that's gonna expose me to how this whole system works is pretty much a business degree, because I really wanted to understand how the system worked. Like, how could it have taken so much away from my friends and everybody I love, and why did we have to leave Ghana and like come over here? I just wanted to understand so much, and I felt like by me going to business school, it would give me an overview of how this so-called capitalism thing works, and I figured things out from there. So. Um, as I went in college, I got my GED. As I enrolled into college, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be in school for 4 years, just every day waking up and going to class. Like I don't know, but that's real boring. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, so if I'm here to understand how this system works, well, okay, first and foremost, after I left Ghana and came back, I was like, there's too much money in Ghana. You know, I was like, I don't know what, I don't understand why these folks are not seeing, but like, there's just too much money in Ghana. Like me being the kind of person that I was, and how we got money out here in Seattle and other places. Um, Man, as I was healing in Ghana, I couldn't understand why they were starving. Like I was like, man, I was baffled. I was like, man, you folks crazy. There's too much money in Ghana, you know. So as I came back to the stage, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take my time, and obviously I'm gonna develop myself, right? So I was able to get through college. However, as I was in college, me and some very good friends, we realized that okay, maybe we could learn the process of entrepreneurship and development, honestly, by creating an institution. Because early stages of my life, I realized institution development is everything. So in Seattle, man, I couldn't understand why my friends and I had to go through so much, you know, because if we had some key programs with some good folks who were mentoring us, I think we would have been all right. But man, we had nothing like that. I mean, we knew where to play basketball, right? And we knew, other places where to have fun and things like that. But like in the city of math and science, in my neighborhood, man, there were no programs to prepare the young folks to become what they call productive human capital in the environment that they were growing up in. So as I was in college, man, I was reflecting, me and those guys, and we were like, listen, we need to create an institution now focus is on the comparative advantage economy of our city, which is math and science. Our whole life is math and science. So I was like, um, um, I don't know, man, by the grace of God, me and these guys, early stages, I think our freshman year, we came together, and ADIA was born, African Descent Youth Affairs. We wanted to make sure the title itself had no artificial boundaries. So African Descent Youth Affairs, unless you don't consider yourself an African descent as a black man or any type of African of African descent person, well, then we can't help you. But it's African Descent Youth Affairs, and its main purpose is to advance African descent youth in entrepreneurship and academic development. So yeah, we had put that together early stages our freshman year, and by the time we graduated, man, that organization was already ready to go. We developed our first pilot program called Sankofa Tutoring System, which is specifically a math and science and cognitive learning development program. Um, and we did some great things um, our first 2 3 years of the pilot program. And you know how it is, as a black man in a math and science city with nothing like that going on. Every time you innovate something like that, if you don't have a track record, no one wants to give you money. So we had to make a lot of sacrifices after college to make sure that we able to have uh, a good solid track record to let the city realize that our program is designed to reflect our community, is made by us for our kids. Because obviously, if you guys knew how to raise our kids will not be in a position where they're not benefiting from the comparative advantage economy in the city of Seattle. Just like I was a victim, and so many of my friends, I got friends doing 30 years in prison. I got friends doing 10 years in prison. I got friends doing 15. These are the people that I grew up with, right? So, um, it can't sustain itself. It's just not possible. So I mean, I had to ask myself, man, what's my purpose in life? I can't just come make a lot of money, and I need quality employees as I evolve in my entrepreneurship development, as I grow in enterprise and development. I need quality employees, and there's nothing like charity begins at home. So charity begins at home, and these guys are not developing real productive human capitals out of our communities, then we just going to take up the responsibility and do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a spiritual work, and that's what we started doing. So as we did that, of course, I went into corporate for a little bit, and I was like, man, 5,000, 6,000 a month, it's not going to be able to sustain me and my kids forever. You know what I mean? and I want to be able to have a good amount of kids in the future. You know what I'm saying? So I had to find a way to make sense out of it. You know what I mean? So be able to make sense out of it economically, right? So you can have these kids
Mm,
be able to obviously take care of them. So there's nothing like getting rich and giving back, and Africa is that opportunity. Like Africa has that place where it doesn't have room to make those mistakes that these so-called developed world had made when they were developing. You know what I mean?
mm,
Is in a position where everything is at its leverage, right? It has the population in terms of the age. It has the natural resources, and it's
mhm,
evolving in leadership as well. It's
mm.
it's improving every year in leadership. Of course, it's not going to change overnight, but if you understand the process of development, you want to get in when you see the pattern evolving into something more sustainable, right? So, Agyeman Consulting Services had came around with me and some very influential people in my life, and
I
we decided to be able
So
to.
is it like with your friends or friends and families or only your friends?
Um, the co-founders are people with unique and real diverse skill sets, who have been a part of my value development journey for the
Mm,
past 14, 15 years. You know, so there's there's nothing like making money with people who are credible and have
mm.
quality to offer. You know, so that's where we are right now. Yeah.
Excellent. So how can someone help? You know,
In terms of
anyone, yeah, anyone
yeah,
listening right now, or that watch this later, that know that okay, what you guys are doing is so needed within our community, and they were, they're like, okay, how can I actually help? So,
I
what
mean,
can they do to help?
you know, that's a very important question because
Mm,
I don't think our community even understand that question yet. Usually, when you ask that question, people go, "Oh well, go to the website and donate and da 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 da." Da."
mm,
You know what I mean?
mm,
The kind of change we are looking for,
mhm.
um, you know, we have obviously been started at the micro level here in Seattle,
Right.
but can you imagine in the city of Seattle with all these heavy companies, Amazon, Microsoft,
Mm,
man, Boeing, all these guys here, okay, Starbucks. Um, we've been asking them for $1 million to be able to operate, okay, non-interrupted for 5 years. You see, um, and because they are not responsible for developing this groundbreaking program for our community from scratch, they have been very, very much lagging their feet in being able to support our program effectively. So yes, you can always go on the website and obviously donate, ADYA effect EFFECT.org. But what we are really looking for is if you out there and you are a credible company which is operating within our supply and demand value chain, and for example, you want to put 2% of your yearly revenue to what we are doing, we are open to that, because it, it takes resources to be able to become competitive. And when you have laws or policies like if your parents don't make enough money, then you can't go to a good school. You got to go to that shitty school in your neighborhood because it's all based on the amount of tax that I guess they are able to take from your income or whatnot. Basically, if your folks don't contribute enough into the community, okay, tax wise, man, you probably not going to be able to have access to a good school in your community. So they're punishing these young kids who are not responsible for their mom and dads obviously being poor. to not become productive human capitals in society. So if those kids happen to come from your community and you multiply that by two, three, four, five, and Lord knows how much, you know, if you estimate the process of development, okay, timeline wise, in just a matter of 10 years or less, these guys will become social liabilities. And that social liability will implode, obviously, your community eventually, right? So we have intervened, but we need support. We need real support, right? So, for example, Agyeman Consulting Services, okay, we put 10% of our revenue into audio. That is insured into um, our organizational structure and operations, right? So, these are the type of help that we are looking for. It's the only way we're going to be able to make the kind of social change or sustainable change that we need in our communities. We need companies from our communities to partner with real organizations that are making a difference, not organizations which are using these companies as a paycheck exchange. A lot of these organizations in our communities, they use these organizations to just basically pay each other. They don't do any work. And that's very unfortunate. I think you guys should find better jobs. Um, with that being said, if you have real companies who can partner with real community organizations who are doing work, it could be 5% of your yearly revenue go into this community-based organization. It can make a lot of difference because these governments are not going to give you the resources um, to be able to change whatever challenges your communities are going through.
Yeah, because it's also important. Like when you keep saying, encouraging people, to support Black-owned businesses, they don't, not everyone, but most people, they don't get it. They feel like, oh, if I can go to the next shop, Chinese shop or Indian shop, and have £2 or £3 left, or $2 or $3 left, less,
Uh-huh.
let me just go to that shop instead of pouring into a brother or a sister, supporting them. May the whole idea be, before even this whole shouting by Black, did this, did that, it's just because we know that we have lots of need within our community,
Uh-huh.
and we are not waiting for anyone else to come and fix those things for us. So I believe if Black-owned businesses are doing well out there, and we have, projects like, what you just shared with us, or
Uh-huh.
I'm doing anything, or any other person out there is doing something. If they have the money, I believe they will sponsor, they will, they will support us. But if they don't have enough, how are they even going to be able to support a cause, that something that is affecting the community? So, you are doing something amazing right there. But, it's not one or two people's job. We need everyone to be part of this. That's why I just put Nana's Instagram in the chat. I'm putting his email as well. So you can email him whatever you can do to support, no matter how small. I'm sure it's going to make a big difference, because we have to come together and face the problem we have, because it's just the same thing in here in the UK. That's
Uh-huh.
the same thing going on in America. So, we have to, I'm sure most people understand now the importance of Black, as our global Black family, to come together and discuss and see what we can do to actually bring the change needed within our community here and also on the continent. So I like the fact that you highlight that, because, it's so good to say, oh, this is happening, that is happening. We know the problem. So now it's no more time to be talking about the problem, but what can we do to face it?
Yeah, a lot of our people are very content because
Mm.
it's it's easy to be content, right? To evolve, it takes reflection and it takes action. A lot of our people, they don't believe that they deserve more, because they think it's okay to be, um, I don't know, content with whatever level that you have been able to achieve, as long as you're not starving, right? So basically, I mean, they set the bar for themselves very, very low, unfortunately, right? And that has to do with everything that we've been through, and the fact that we've not been able to heal properly, to understand that God ain't put any human being on here to just be, out here suffering and all that stuff. Because when you analyze the critical aspects of what every human being needs, food or medicine, or housing or real estate or wood, air, you know, um, these things were not made by human beings. These things were given by our Creator, you know. So whether you were rich or poor or whatever, when you came out your mother, these stuff were here. So you were given these things to be able to sustain on God-given earth. So what another human being does to take it away from you, has nothing to do with what God has already given you. You know what I mean? So it's up to you to make sure that you take what belongs to you. And I think the fact that our community have been missing credit for so long, everything is governed by systems, right? So if I come to your house, Miss Kid, if I come to your house, is your system, right? This whole platform, right? This is for you. You organize it. You know everything about it, right? Only thing I will know, only time I will know something about it is when you tell me about it, right? So if you come to my house, it's the same thing, right? It's my system. It's organized. If I don't tell you where the restroom is, you would not know. So it's the same thing with the system, which is governing anywhere in the UK or America, is organized and built by somebody. So if that person, if you were not at the table, if they didn't have you in mind, you know, it's probably not going to reflect your values or your way of thinking, right? So at that point, you know, do you try to force your way in, or do you innovate within that system? And I think a lot of us have had to just either try to force our way in, especially a lot of African descent people in the diaspora who, have no confidence in Africa, or don't believe that Africa has anything to offer them within the so-called Western system. They try to force their way in, right? So you find a lot of them, man, who's sacrificing themselves, right? Either they spend so much of their time trying to grow in, in their corporate spaces and try to make everybody think that they are the right person for the job, making so many sacrifices, right? But at the
Mm.
end of the day, not really getting anywhere intrinsically, right? Losing family values, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So
I sit
true.
back, and I'm like, when we talk about what we are worth, I think
Mm.
we usually don't reflect it around what is governing what wealth really means. What is your wealth within a system that's not built for you, right? So you either
Mm.
sit
Wow.
there, sacrifice yourself for the system
Mm-hmm.
minimum level, and a lot of our people are doing well at the minimum level. They have, obviously good jobs, or so-called good jobs.
Mm.
They have obviously shelter. They have a little bit in the bank, but they don't have access to credit, which is a surplus to be able to pass it on to their communities, to be able to make a big difference in their communities. And that's where these Europeans really, really became a master at, is they did anything by any means to have access to a surplus of credit, what we
Mm.
call doormat capital, because there is no social issue without an economic issue. and if there is an economic issue, chances are your social environment is going to implode. So is hand in hand, and when they come together, is either going to be sustainable or unsustainable. Like in America, when they came together, they didn't organize it in a way where it was meant to be sustainable. They segmented a whole bunch of their own populations within their own system that they were hoping that it would be sustainable while it was working for just a segment of the people, right? So eventually, you don't plant corns and eat yams. It's going to implode itself, right? So at this point, I think our community's greatest challenge is, if they really want to come out of this economic and social disadvantage, they got to be very innovative.
What's your advice? Yeah.
They have to be very innovative on how they mobilize capital. You know, let me tell you, let me tell you a story, right? So every time I go to Ghana, I like to walk. I spend a lot of time walking. So I was in my neighborhood in Kumasi, okay, at a place called Ashtown, right? And I was working, and it was getting close to the holidays. Um, and I seen some young guys, man, sitting over there having a conversation, and they were talking about putting money together, buy a sheep and things like that, right? So I was sitting back and I was like, these guys, okay, they look like, what I'm saying, neighborhood kids. And, as I was walking by, I was intrigued. So I got into the conversation. I was like, hey, folks, man, how much y'all contributing for the sheep? So just, and they were like, oh, man, this guy said he going to put this much. This guy said he going to put it. I was like, man, how big is the sheep? Like, man, it's going to be there. I was like, wow, man, it's going to be a good feast, And so I was sitting back and I was like, so, hey, man, what happens after the sheep is done? And they were looking at me like, huh?
No answer.
Like, what are you talking about, right? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, do you guys have jobs and stuff? Like, well, hustle, Africa, pop, 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 you know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay. I was like, well, it's obvious that you guys have been friends for a long time. So you have some kind of relationships here, of some kind of trust here. I said, what's wrong with you guys being able to put money together to go buy a sheep, but using that same model to maybe create a small little business out here to meet, some kind of demand that's missing in your community. I'm like, if you guys can come together to put money to go get your belly filled up, well, you can fill your belly up for a long time. If you guys come up with a real plan and put some little work together, to be able to see some income coming in. You 4 friends, you guys know each other, you guys can work together, and every year you can buy a sheep. I mean, each one of y'all can buy his own sheep. So these are the things that we got to reflect on: is how do we develop innovative ways to get access to capital and be able to use that capital to gradually take ownership of some of that supply and demand value chain that we are not in control of right now. And that's very, very important.
So, I know the Black celebrities out there, they've been so vocal lately, regarding the police brutality over there in the US. So, what advice do you have for them? Because they have the capital, they have the money. What do you think they can do to change this whole thing? Apart from, obviously the post, the hashtag, not the noise, but, the fact that they've been vocal. What do you think, something tangible they can do to bring the change needed, over there in the state?
Because I have a master's in logistics and supply chain, I like to look at things from a segment perspective, like a value chain perspective,
Right.
So, I've said this before, the African American economic base in this country is not, it's not centered around the critical sectors of their survival. So, the so-called celebrities um, 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 and your high-level economic-based African Americans, like your Oprahs and your Jordans, and a few folks in technology who have very significant amount of money of African American households. They have not invested significantly in the critical sectors, areas, of their survival, right? So they don't have a lot of wealth in agriculture in this country. They don't have a lot of wealth um, in real estate in regards to in the larger aspect of their respective communities, right? So, you know, they need access to ownership of what is important within surviving and sustaining their communities. So when you talk about them being able to make an impact right now, all their money is tied in to those who are oppressing them. So all they can do is cosmetic changes, like wear a t-shirt or this. They'll they usually speak of Martin Luther King as if he wasn't radical. They killed a man because he was radical. Okay, all that. Oh man, he was nonviolent stuff. People don't understand him. They need to go and read about Martin Luther King. Okay, this man gave them a yardstick of just peaceful protests and just trying to reason with them for a very long time. But eventually he realized that the most critical change will come from radical change, whether economically or socially. So the most effective change at all times is is radical economic reforms. Whether you take your money away from them, or these so-called black celebrities or African American celebrities or African descent celebrities, they need to have some kind of a consensus. You have so many of them who are not willing to sacrifice their line of credit to get real justice in America. So it's a situation that, as long as these guys are not willing to effectively utilize radical approach in aspects of, hey, if we are $1.5 trillion of a value in consuming, well, you know what, we gonna find a way to take that away from you, because it's 2020, 2021. You can track where your money goes. You can track how your money is spent. And I believe we have enough competent people within our environment to make sure that we are able to track and see which companies that we could take our money from. We need radical economic reforms with, in terms of our relationship with these folks who are oppressing us. We need to be able to take a stand and say, hey, if it's about money, well, we're not going to get money with you if you guys don't make some changes in our lives, because it's just not right. So I don't really have a lot of trust in them, okay, unless they really, really, I think they know what to do. It's just again, it comes down to what
But they
level
are
of
not.
sacrifice are you
Hmm,
willing to make? You know what I'm
that's
saying?
it.
And they know exactly what to do. They know, NFL know that if they woke up tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
and these players said we're not going to play, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a very, very, very important change, because
Mm-hmm.
these owners are responsible for, um, obviously, man, paying lobbying fees for these same politicians. They have relationship with these same politicians who make the laws and the policies in our environments. These multi-billionaires who own the teams, they are the ones with relationships with the politicians. So if we stop playing and entertaining them, then they'll go put pressure on the politicians to make the laws that need to be made to make sure we have a peace of mind in a civilized environment. You know what I mean? But these guys are not willing to make that kind of change, right? So, as long as we're not
Okay.
willing to make some radical reforms, I think it's just a waste of time.
Mm. So what
Unfortunately.
about the individual out there, the brothers and sisters that are not celebrities, what advice do you have for them when it comes to investing maybe on the continent, or try to get something that they can actually call this is actually mine when it comes to maybe lands or property, or like I said, investment? Do you have any advice for them?
I think again it comes down to systems. You know,
Right.
you know, what do you think you are realistically going to get out of this system, which has
Mm,
been so stubborn in the past 215 years in bringing equity to a people who have who have been so disfranchised for so long. I mean, so if you think you can
mm,
really get something out of it, if you feel like you know you can I don't know, protect yourself from another serious market crash, which in my lifetime I think is been about four or five already. You know what I'm saying? So,
mm,
um, the reality is for those individuals who are really serious, who are
mm,
really serious, you
mhm,
have to make use of good information. And the reality of information is, as much as Africa is somehow still neo-colonized, okay,
mm.
the spirit is on our side. Okay, um, its population is young,
Yeah.
or her population very very young. There's a
Labor is very cheap.
growing class of educated people increasing
Mhm,
on a daily basis. You have our leaders at the highest level, the African Union, as stubborn as and ignorant as a lot of them are. The
mm,
few have been able to put pressure on them to gradually move towards effective integration. Effective integration means economic integration. So you seen obviously the free trade agreement. So if you're a young
mm,
man, I would say 40 years or younger, or 50 years or younger, for God's sake, and you have a little bit of change, you have to ask yourself, what systems are being developed in these growing African economies, and would it be compatible to me?
mm,
In the next 10, 15 years? Can I see myself growing in Ghana, which have shown a track record of being real democratic and some level of respect for the rule of law and things like that? Can I invest here and see a brand of mine grow and mature within the supply and demand value chain in the next 10, 15 years, right? So these are some of the questions that you have to answer by utilizing good information, right? And
mm,
that's what Agyeman Consulting Services does. We help you make informed decisions, right? So you might have a plan, but not even understand how to utilize that plan on the continent. It's okay. Just the fact that you even have this idea
mm,
just is no different from when your mom and dad had a plan to come to America. They didn't know what the hell was going on.
mm. Not at
You know what
all.
I'm saying? They just knew when they get here, they're gonna
Mhm,
find a way to make it
mm,
happen. Well, today it doesn't even have to be that radical. You have organizations like ours. You have other organizations who are credible, right? Because when you talk about emerging economies, there's a reason why it's a third world. It's not a third world because it's just a coincidence, so-called third world, but there's a reason why
mhm,
it's underdeveloped. Underdeveloped means when you are blessed with natural resources and you can't optimize it to create wealth within the masses of those who are the true inheritance of their resources, you are underdeveloped. You know what I'm saying? That's the bottom line. Until you are able to utilize those resources to make sure access to water, access to energy, access to housing, access to food,
infrastructure,
and
good
these things,
roads.
good
Mm,
roads, infrastructure system to facilitate these things until
mhm,
they are at a surplus and manageable and continuous improvement level, you are now developed, right? So are they
true.
missing natural resources? No. So
No.
these individuals who are engineers, who are accountants, who are this, Africa is the only place that you could develop a brand to
Mm,
meet a demand of a growing educated class that will be requiring efficiency as they get closer to higher purchasing income, right? So as these guys, as their democratic environment improve, as their I don't know, as their systems of governance improve, what is critical in managing all of that is efficiency. The only reason why the first world is the first world is because of efficiency. When you have, when you are efficient, you save money, right? So I think people in the diaspora have the opportunity to create products and services which can impact Africa in an efficient manner, right? And out of that, they can only give you money and thank yous, right? So there's great opportunities on the continent for the young folks who are willing to have respect for the process of development. If you talk about quick, rich, and that kind of stuff, well, in Africa, there are a lot of people who can scam you on that, and trust me, you will lose savings, right? So, but if you talk about the average of okay, 5 year investment and seeing a return from that, is very, very much a heaven for that kind of opportunity, right? Yeah.
So you work with individuals and companies,
Right. Exactly. So I work with individuals, or our company work with individuals, and then we also work with organizations who might want to segment a certain things like industry research. So if you are a company and you are looking to expand your brand into Africa, um, but you lack an intrinsic research information on how the market will respond on how the market will respond to your brand in terms of either your product or your services, we able to do that kind of homework for you and be able to give you an informed feedback on what the potentials look like for your company.
That's amazing. So, guys, the email is right there on the screen now. So it's Agyeman Consulting Services .com. So you can email them, and they will be able to help you with what you need to do over there. And like Ahmed just mentioned, the work as well with companies. So, all you need to do is to get in contact, and then they will be able to help you. So any last advice or word for the diaspora, Ahmed? What
Yeah,
we can do collectively to bring the change needed on the continent?
the change is going to come from the young generation as always, because we are the ones, we have time to be able to implement a seed and watch it grow. So um, really, but my concern is not the availability of opportunities. My concern is the lack of availability of skill set, intrinsic skill sets from our community, which can meet or be able to fill in these places, right? So if you want someone to give off power and you're not ready to be able to manage that power and sustain it, then there's no benefits
Sit
in you
down.
crying every day, right? So
That's
you
true.
know, so we need these guys to realize that listen, if you have a skill set and and you feel like you are not comfortable with, let's say, corporate maybe capping you up at 150, you know what I mean, unless you're a special type of employee, then maybe they might move you up further. You need to look at how you can play a role in helping Africa grow, and you can get rich obviously doing that, and that's all that matters.
True. True. That's so well put together. It's down to us to do what we need to do if you really want to see change on the continent. So, guys, this
You
is the
can't
end
blame
of.
the Muzungus for going
Oh,
out
not
there
at all.
and
No, no,
filling
no,
in
no,
their
no.
spaces when you don't want to go fill in their spaces. They see money. They love your mother more than you do, ironically. So
I mean, it's right. It sounds funny, but it's right. So now, it's down to the diaspora, whatever skill you have, what you can do to help. If you have to go there, just like, visit and try to meet people on the ground and see what you can teach them, what you can do with those people out there in order to bring the change needed on the continent. We all have a role, we all have a part to play for that to happen. So voilà, on a passé un très très bon moment avec Ahmed Nana ce soir et il a partagé plein de trucs avec nous. Donc si vous voulez travailler avec lui, vous avez besoin de l'aide de sa société, vous pouvez l'envoyer un email. J'ai mis ça là-bas sur l'écran, agyemanconsultingservices.com, et il va vous expliquer comment eux, ils vont travailler avec vous, en fait. Donc, pour le changement qu'on veut voir sur notre cher continent, ça ne peut pas se passer si nous, les filles et fils de l'Afrique, on ne fait pas ce qu'on doit faire. Si on reste les bras croisés, rien ne va changer. Donc, il faut qu'on s'unisse et qu'on arrive à faire des choses pour voir le changement que nous voulons réellement voir sur le continent. Donc, très bonne nuit à tous et c'est la fin ce soir. Donc, so Nana, thanks so much for joining us tonight and you share a lot with us. So guys, if you want to get in contact with Nana, I've already put his Instagram link right there in the chat, so you can actually follow him and you can email him as well if you have any question, so he will be able to explain things to you and then you take it from there. So thanks everyone for joining. If you haven't already thumbs up the stream, please go ahead and thumbs up and share with family and friends, and I will see you all very soon. Enjoy your weekend, guys, and thanks so much, Nana, again.
Listen, Miss Kai, thank you for everything you're doing. Guys, support the Diaspora channel. We have to
Thank
support
you.
our black women more and more and more. They have been the pillar and the backbone of the black male survival. So we have to protect them and obviously make sure they get what they want. So amen to you guys. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Dada. Bye, everyone.